Welcome to PDX Garden Home. It's the end of August here, and as you can see, it's a little bit overcast. We've had strange weather. It's been super hot in the last few days, and then it started to cool down and been a little bit overcast, and we've had a few sprinkles in between the heat waves. So hopefully this is not the first signs of fall, because I want to keep going on with summer for another month here if we can, and that's possible here in Portland. It often happens that the summerish type weather can extend into September, so that's what I'm hoping for. But people are back to school, and this is becoming the unofficial end of summer. As you can see here, what I'm working on over here is a failure, really. In a prior video, in a prior episode, you saw I was planting out some peas, and I was concerned about whether it would work or not because of the heat in the summer. My intent was to plant out the peas and then let them grow into the fall, and yeah, as you can see, that they've died. They've been killed here. I haven't pulled anything out, but I don't think this will survive long term because of how dead they are. And I mean, I watered it pretty religiously, a couple times a day after we planted, and to try to keep it alive, but it was just too hot. We were getting into the 90s, and it just doesn't work. So that's one of the things I'm working on trying to figure out in the Portland environment, is if you want to plant a fall garden and you got to get stuff in the ground so to actually be ready in, say, October, November, can you realistically put it in the ground in August when the temperatures are 90 plus? And in this case, the answer is no, you can't do it that way. So we'll keep trying. I'll go ahead and plant some more seeds and see if I can just, now the weather's cooling down, maybe it'll stay cooler now. So maybe if I plant some seeds and grow some more, we'll still have enough time to get a crop of this before temperatures are too low and rain's just too much. But we'll see how that goes. Coming up on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about harvesting broccoli, showing you the different kinds of broccoli we have in the garden. Then we're going to take a look at harvesting the beets. We've got a bunch of different kinds of beets, and we're harvesting them again here. And finally, we're going to look at my experiment with rooting hydrangeas, taking hydrangea cuttings and trying to get them to root. Okay, well, we are out here in the North Kitchen Garden, and I'm going to be harvesting from our brassica beds. We have one right here that I'm going to be working in, and then we have one next to it, and then we have one in the back. So this year for 2019, we had three brassica beds. And historically, what I've done with the beds is I've grouped the annual vegetables by family type, so that's why I call them the brassica beds. So this would be where my broccoli and my Asian vegetables like bok choys would be here. I don't really have any in here right now except for babies. I've got Brussels sprouts in here. This is also where cabbages and things like that would be. And I grouped them by families like that because I was rotating where crops were in the beds. I'm rethinking that as to whether we really want to do that or not, or whether that really matters in a home vegetable garden. But more on that in the future. But today what I'm doing here is working on harvesting the broccoli. We've got a bunch of broccoli, so I'll tell you kind of about my experience with broccoli, what I'm seeing here, and what our strategy is with it. So most broccoli, what we have here is a nice bed here, and we actually planted out several different kinds. So we planted out some that were designed to be full kind of heads of broccoli, the way you normally might see them in the supermarket. We also planted some that are more like what we call sprouting broccoli, that are designed to put up little small heads. And I didn't do a good job of keeping track of what's what, but I can tell that these here are, from my experience, are ready to go at the size that they are. They're all a little bit different sizes, but they're ready to go, because if I don't pull them now, these will turn into yellow flowers. The heads will break apart, and then they'll turn into little flowers, and you'll probably see some of that as we walk around this garden. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them, but I'm not going to pull them all the way out, because most broccoli will actually grow a second head. The second, third, fourth heads that will grow will not be as big as the original heads usually, unless it is a sprouting broccoli intentionally. But almost all broccoli will grow a second head and give you another harvest later. So not knowing exactly which varieties these were to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and cut these and then leave them there for second, third, fourth heads to come on later in the season. So I'm gonna cut that down there and drop it in my basket and grab my wheelbarrow here. So I usually have my wheelbarrow with me as I go so I can throw extra branches and garbage in there to keep things tidy. Now, one thing that I'm seeing in this bed that I never really worked with before, but I looked it up on the internet, is white fly. So apparently white fly is a new pest to the Portland area that's come in the last few years, and it attacks these brassica crops. And so as I'm cutting these, you'll maybe see kind of this white puff of stuff come up. That's actually lots of little flies that are kind of hiding out in here on the brassica plants. And having just learned of their existence, I'm not exactly sure how to control them yet, but we'll figure it out at some point. Usually the pest that I'm most concerned with here is the cabbage moth, or sometimes called the cabbage lopper. It's the little white moths that come in here, that lay their eggs, and then there'll be a caterpillar that eat the leaves of the brassica plants, which eating the leaves of a broccoli doesn't hurt too much as long as it lets the plant survive, but it'll do that to your bok choys and your cabbages and stuff that you actually eat the leaves, so that stinks. But okay, so that's what I got from that section there, and we're gonna move down and get some of these smaller heads while we're at it. So this is a smaller head that came off a bigger branch. So this came off something that had a bigger head originally that I had cut several weeks ago. So that's what I was talking about, second and third sprouts that you will get from the plants if you just leave them in. And that seems to be the case, that this grouping here is stuff that I harvested weeks ago, and now I'm pulling out the second and third branches off of it here. Over here, this is what I was saying. This is what happens when I leave it too long, right? So the broccoli head here turns into a flower. It's usually a yellow flower. So the broccoli heads open up, and then it turns into a flower there. So that's ideally we're trying to harvest before that happens, before the heads open up and then they flower. We call that bolting for the broccoli. Okay, so you can see here some sprouting broccoli that is about to open up into flowers. So I'm getting it just before it opens up into flowers there. You can see some of these white flies flying around probably. And this is the second or third cut from these plants here. I'm going to be harvesting beets here from this bed. This was, I can't say the word, there's a big long technical name that starts with a CH for things that are in the beet family. So that would be things like beets and spinach, and this is quinoa that you see here. That's also in the beet family. So these are all different. Amaranth is also in that family, and so we grouped that together. And this bed is that kind of family: beet, spinach, quinoa, amaranth. And so when we do beets, and you may have seen this in my other videos, we plant the beets into seeds into plug trays, and then we let them grow up, and then we plant the plugs out here, and there's usually like two or three beets in the clump that's in the ground. And I didn't come up with that on my own. There's a great UK gardener, Charles, and I forget his last name, and probably say it wrong, Charles Dowding, and he has a lot of YouTube videos, and I was watching him do it is how I learned to do it this way, and it's been working well for me this season. The only thing I would say about beets that is not exactly what people often expect is people think that beets are an easy, cool weather crop that grows very quickly, and the packets will usually say, well, these can mature in like 60 or 90 days, but that's not my experience. It usually takes like 4 months for these to mature, and all of these have been in the ground for 5 to 6 months already, and I've been harvesting them at various stages, but I know there's a bunch in here now that need to be harvested, so I figured let's film that while we're doing it. You can kind of see that process. So I've got a combination of gold beets in here, golden boy beets, which are the golden or yellow beets after you cook them and cut them up. And here's an example of where we've got several from a plug tray that were put together, and I'm going to twist out just the largest ones that are ready, seem like they're ready to go. And these aren't even as large as they can get, but they're large enough to eat, so I'm going to go ahead and pull those out. And we got those two there. I'm going to leave the others in the ground there. And these other back here, they look, I'm going to go ahead and twist this one out. It really could get a lot bigger than that, but by twisting it out now when there's a group of 3, I'm giving it space to grow bigger. Yeah, I think we're good there. Okay. Same thing here, I've got a group of 3, but I've got one that's getting reasonable size here, so I'm going to twist it out. Drop it in my basket. This is a nice bigger one here. So yeah, we've had a lot of beets this year, which is the first time I've been able to grow this many beets. I'm happy with it. I like beets. I didn't used to like beets as a kid, but I've learned to like them as a gardener. Pretty much the way all the veggies go. Didn't used to like tomatoes either, but learned to like them as a gardener. Now this, I'm not sure which kind this one is. This is quite, it's got a lot of foliage to it. I'm going to twist it out and see. You know, I'm not even well, I was going to say I'm not sure if that was intended to be a beet or if that was chard. Beet and chard are in the same family. It's just the beet grows the root that you eat, and the chard you usually eat for the leaves. You can also eat beet leaves, but I think this was a beet. I think this was the avalanche white beet is what this was, but it's kind of unusually shaped here. But I'll go ahead and save it and see if we can process it for eating. Here's another, I think this is another one of those avalanche white beets. I brought these home one day and my wife thought they were turnips. And I said, no, they're beets. And she said, no, they can't be, they're white. But that's the kind they are. They're called the avalanche white beet. Sometimes if I can't see how big the beet is under the ground, most of the time when they're ready, they will have swelled up enough that they're swelling up out of the ground. You can kind of see them. But sometimes if they're buried under a lot of compost, I'll just stick my fingers down in around them to kind of get a sense of what their diameter is before I pull them out. That's what I did with this one here. I could tell it's nice and round. This is what they call a Tyayoga beet, and if you slice it this way, what you would see is variegation. In fact, I can do that. Put it right here. There we go. You can see what it looks like in there. It's got this nice look there. Throw this in the basket, see if we can salvage it, but if not, it was worth it to show you all kind of what that looks like in there. Nice, cool color. Kind of a unusual root system there. This is just a classic, I think this is a ruby red beet here. And that's it for this part of the beet bed. So I'll see you guys in another part of the garden. Well, we're coming to the end of our episode here. Before we go, I wanted to share with you my Hydrangea Propagation experiment. So I got this methodology from watching others on YouTube, other creators. And so what I did is I took a Tupperware, I said it's Tupperware, but it's like one of those plastic bins that I had from somewhere else, and then I use that as my propagation chamber. It's a clear plastic tub. And then we took the solo cup, the plastic solo cups. Now, what a lot of people do when they're propagating this, I saw, was that they use perlite or grit or sand or something like that, because you don't really need real soil for the propagation purposes, because what you're trying to do is root. You're trying to get the cuttings to root. So I took these hydrangea cuttings off one of the hydrangeas in the garden, and because I didn't have any of that other stuff, I didn't have any extra perlite just sitting around, I just used the potting soil that we use, and it seems to have worked here. You can see kind of clearing away some of it, and you can see the roots there forming. So it's actually forming roots there, and the advantage I see now of the fact that it's not in perlite or anything is that I should be able to, I think I can just leave it in here for growing on, because this is potting soil, so I can add fertilizer to it later and just try to let it grow through the fall and the winter, and hopefully we'll have some good plant starts next year then. I was wanting to check on these today, see if they are rooting, see if it's time to kind of take them out of the Tupperware. What I've been concerned about is the fact that even though this is clear, I had this opaque top on it, so I'm like, well, they're not really getting any sun sitting back here. They might have gotten a little bit of refracted light, I should say, coming through here and getting in here a little bit, but not a whole lot. And I was worried that would prevent this whole process from working, but it doesn't seem to. It seems to be fine. And so now I've been trying to figure out, trying to research at what point do you stop doing this and do you actually put it into a process of regular growth. And I haven't found any good answers on that, so I'm just going to experiment on my own, and I'm going to go ahead and take them out and put them in a process of growth now. What I mean by that is I'm going to take them out of the propagation tray, and I'm going to put them here and leave them in a regular tray instead. These are trays I got at the dollar store one year. I really like them. They're nice and sturdy, and I find them helpful for this kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and take these out of here. And I'm actually just going to leave them here. This is more light and air than they've been getting. And again, I'm hoping, making the calculation that they're ready for that. I don't actually have the experience to know if they are, so we'll see. We'll see if this is a success or a failure. But I'll probably leave them on this here area, because this area doesn't get too much sun. It gets some sun in the morning, but it doesn't get too much sun the rest of the day, so it's not likely to overwhelm them. So I'll kind of start them out here, and then I'll move them into an area with more sun later, probably after we're sure that that we're not going to have any more 90-degree days. Just spreading them out a little bit here, and that's it. So thanks for joining us. That's the end of this week's episode, and if you're getting any value out of this, if you enjoy watching us, then yeah, please subscribe to us on YouTube, and we'd love to keep doing more of these videos with you in the future. All right, take care now, and I'll see you next time.